I'm working as a business analyst and agile product owner. And as I see, we have a lot of common writing, UX writing and requirements work. So this is what I will present today. I've been working with technical documentation for many years. So I'm familiar with user guides and release notes and developer guides as well. Back then we called it technical communication or technical documentation. But I think we were mostly user-centered back then as well. How many of you are working with agile methods in oh, those many. That's great. Are you part of self-organizing cross-functional teams as well? Good for you. So you come in early in each iteration then? Or are some here struggling to be involved early? Because I feel sorry for you.
What's your base?
But then we are too, because as a business analyst I struggle to have the mandate to involve people early. So you get a lot of comments that it's still that people still think so. Yeah. What we need to do a good work, all of us, the developers, the UX writers, and myself, is to get a context of the scope of what we are doing and the context around it. I'm just curious what the word context mean to you. Anyone? Feel free. So the context. Well, if you are developing a new feature, it could be a design of a digital service, it could be an electromechanical system, it could be an AI.
Let's say the user's needs and feelings.
Mm-hmm. I think I switched color. I think this is green is too weak. Users' needs and feelings.
Yeah.
Something else?
The why, the requirements.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
The why.
The why.
Requirements.
Yeah.
And like the time and place when they actually use your product or service.
Mm-hmm.
What the product is supposed to do.
What the product is
Supposed to do.
Yeah.
Purpose. What you're supposed to do.
To do. Okay. Anything else?
It's related to the task you have to do, so the context is depending on something.
Oh, the task.
Yeah, or related to a scenario. So depending on where you are, or what you're trying to do, and who you are,
Yeah.
your context will change.
Who you are So maybe it
What
is.
you know as well, of course.
Yeah. So maybe this is related to this one. Scenario. Time for use.
Yeah, scenario.
Yeah. Anything more?
Technical environment.
Technical environment. Mm-hmm. So kind of what do you say? Prerequisite.
Yeah.
You mean?
It can be dynamic or static. You can have a fixed context, or it can be changing continuously, as in the advertising we heard.
So why is all this so important?
It's affecting the content.
Yeah. It does. And it also affects our conceptual understanding of what we need to do and what the user needs. And if I will show some just you're familiar with the Agile Manifesto as well? Many, I've heard some Agile coaches, they have, they mean that the documentation is not necessary because you're working in very close interaction within the team, but the manifesto doesn't say that. You say that it's a prioritization. You want the software to work. That's the most important. And that's common sense as well, because if the software is not working, how many of you have been through that you have to document a UI that is not working properly? Several. Classic. So this makes sense. And with requirements, I mean, of course, this comes from the users. They have needs, they have wishes, and we also need to specify which user we are developed for. And input comes many ways. It comes from support, it comes from employees. But the business itself has needs, of course, commercial, technical. We have laws we need to follow. And standards, as you mentioned, not at least. And then many places, many organizations, they have internal frameworks with design guidelines and such. Documentation, style guides, front-end style guides, and whatever. And I also think that it's important to talk about the benefit. And how many of you are working with user stories every day? Oh, some. Good. I will now switch over to some possible ways to visualize requirements. And I think we will see that we have a lot of common. Context and concept is vital. And it's also important that we have to keep motivated, that we are involved, that we can discuss and we can participate and contribute, and we also can influence some of the decisions regarding the solution. That's important for the team spirit. I will show you something I'm not very fond of, and it's requirements like this. Very, very common. And they are mostly headings. If they say enough, no, they don't, because you don't get the context. You just get a list with summarized features, but with no benefit, and it doesn't show any dependencies to other features. And user stories. How many of you are working with the full format of user stories with the benefit? You are? Is it just one? I've seen that people set a full stop after that. I can easily handle a big change on the website, and then it's a full stop after that. But why should you develop something if you don't have any benefit from it? It's important. And I think I've seen also that some put their requirements in Jira. I think you should keep the user stories and the requirements separated, because you actually can reuse requirements at a later stage if you want. And in Jira, as you work in progress and you eventually close down the items, they're not so easily found on search. You don't know what you get when you do a search. So I recommend to have them separated. Here is user scenarios, also called use cases. But some people, they confuse use cases with user stories. So to be more clear, I use the word user scenarios. And I don't know how well is it possible to read from where you are?
It's a little challenging.
Okay. It's a sequence of actions. For example, the customer reports an incident here, and a system creates the ticket, and the ticket is lined up, and there's several actors doing something in a sequence. So here you can see who is doing what and in which order. And it's not far away from user instruction. And I mean that if you are a team, if I'm as a business analyst and I would like to invite test and UX writers to early, we can collaborate these instructions together, and we can reuse some of the information. Of course, this needs to be further worked through, of course, if the user will read it later. And this will also be needed to be worked through for testers to create test cases. But also good to have process flows. I think you visualize and you get an overview of what is happening and in which order. And you talk with developers. I find the state transition diagrams very useful because they want to know what is going to happen at every state. Because that's the rule engine behind software, for example, how it should behave. And I guess you also work, like me, with a lot of definitions and terminology that needs to be aligned. So we talk the same language. And I have an example here from one of my assignments. They had 2 systems that should be integrated through field mapping, but one system used the word closed and the other resolved, and they had different settings for priority. The one system had 5 different priority statuses and the other just 4. So it's important to align information. And then we have mock-ups and wireframes. Is there anyone here working with the mock-ups, wireframes? Oh yeah. Good. Do you have design studios as well as a workshop? Yeah, good. I think that's a perfect workshop for any one of the stakeholders to attend. I mean, developers, product owners, UX writers, all can contribute with the design sketches. And it's fun too. So just to summarize, I'm almost done. You need to align terminology. And I suggest that to combine feature description with user scenarios and collaborate a lot, discuss, collect feedback from users, and reuse information as much as possible to save time and avoid double work and misunderstandings, of course. And I think it's good to verify requirements early with test. There was a project manager recently who asked me, why should we involve tests right now? It's not their job to review requirements. And then I said, it's better that we know if the requirements are verifiable now than later. Because then we will lose speed if we wait for it later. And he accepted that. So, conclusion. And I'm not sure, do you agree?
I actually didn't have time to read it.
Oh, sorry. How do you go back? Let's see. So, I'm too quick. So, do you agree?
Yeah.
That user scenarios can be a way to work together, and also it's a way to get the conceptual understanding of the scope and what we're doing, we're going to build. Okay? Thank you for listening.